For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll just go with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, you could get a copy and then like whatever I edit, I'll send it to you.
Cool.
Yeah. And you can use it too if you like. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. All right. So we're here with, Representative, Elijah Pierick. Is that how you say it? By the way?
Elijah Pierick. Yeah.
Pierick, right? So I'm saying it correctly. Yeah, and you might introduce yourself, just like what you do. I know you got a lot of credit. You got a lot of things that you do. You're you're in office, but you also work another job. So yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, so I am a state representative for District 39. So that's Ewa Beach, Waipahu, Kunia, Waikele, Ho'opili, and Honolulu'uli. With being a state representative, inside the House of Representatives, we vote on leadership positions. So in the minority caucus, I'm the whip. So I'm like third to serve everybody. What else? So I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Hawaii. So I have a license number with the state Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. I get to counsel people on their careers, mental health issues, family strife, marital strife, bringing up children, you name it, I can counsel it. I have 4 units of clinical pastoral education. I have a doctorate degree from Liberty University with a focus on pastoral education, and the dissertation is on inner healing. Basically, I'm helping the client experience healing through forgiveness. So helping them encounter Jesus, praying, and then forgiving that person that they wronged or need to be forgiven from. I have a bachelor's in Bible and Christian ministry, a master's in Christian studies, a master's in divinity with a focus on pastoral counseling. I'm a professor at about 4+ universities. I've authored 4 books, and I love life. And I'm a pastor with the Foursquare denomination, a cabinet member at the national denominational level. And I'm happy to be here with you, Christian.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you. District 39 is the best district. I love it here. It's the best. But one of the things I wanted to just ask you. So, what private school did you go to? Because you did all those things. So what?
Pacific Rim Christian University.
Yeah.
To get my bachelor's and 2 masters.
But in high school, what private school? You obviously went to a private school, right?
Very private, so exclusive that there was only 4 students ever enrolled in the entire duration of that school, called Knowledge of the Truth, and it was my parents' homeschool.
Nice, the Pierick Academy.
There you go.
That's what we call ours. We homeschool our kids too, and we call it the CNE Learning Academy.
Nice.
So we love it. But can you explain just really quickly what led you to get into politics? You're obviously doing a lot of other things before you got into politics. You were serving in ministry, you're teaching, you have your own practice. So why add this extra thing, this extra burden,
Well, it's definitely not a burden. Maybe in some ways there's a mantle that is carried.
Yeah, there's a weight to it.
Sure.
There's a gravitas to the position.
I love it. So I was an assisting pastor at New Hope Town, and while I was there worshiping the Lord on a Saturday night, I had this encounter. Well, I felt like I saw Jesus, or I had this experience where the impression of Jesus was there. And just like this, projector screen is here, imagine it being 4 feet by 4 feet, like a blank canvas. And I felt like Jesus had this blank canvas on an easel, and he was conveying to me, Elijah, this is going to be your future. Be ready to receive what it brings. It's going to be something you don't expect. And then 1 month after that, I was at a courtroom because I was defending myself because I got a traffic ticket in Waikiki, but I didn't believe I deserved the traffic ticket. I thought the ticket was written in error. So I wrote a letter defending myself, and then the judge looked at it and said, no, we're still going to give you the traffic ticket, and we're going to add on additional admin fees because it took our time to read this letter. And so the option was to pay it right there in the mail or to ask for an appeal and have a court date. So that had a court date, 1 month after that encounter with the Lord. So I'm at the court, and I feel like the Lord put on my heart, Elijah, don't defend yourself. I'm going to advocate for you. I'm going to defend you. And so I'm before the judge, and she asks me, would you like to say anything? And I said, no, because I'm going to believe in the impression I got from the Lord. And the people in the judge offices talked, and they acquitted me. They said, we're not going to charge you. And then right after that, I go into the lobby of the judicial building in downtown, and it's just like a block away from the Capitol where I now work. And I had a phone call from my friend, Shiloh Tribble. And my phone rings, and I say, hey, Shiloh, what's up? And he says, what are you doing, man? I says, well, I'm at court, and I just got acquitted. And he's like, that's amazing. Congratulations. I'm like, yeah, what's on your mind? He says, you should run for office. I'm like, really? Why? And he told me why I should run for office. He said, I'm going to run for Waianae. You should run for Ewa. And we'll both help legalize nuclear energy so we can decrease the cost of electricity together. And so I was like, that's great. And I thought he was going to do it. He was going to run for office. He never did.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I was passionate about it. So I emailed the Hawaii Republican Party. I said, hey, this is where I live. How can I get involved? And they never emailed me back. And so, okay, maybe I was just excited. Maybe my friend got excited. So I didn't think much of it. And then the very next month, I go to the state prayer breakfast, and I was a part of Bristol Hospice at the time, and the other hospice chaplains, all of us went together to go to the prayer breakfast. And the guy who was sitting next to us at our table was running for office himself. And he said, Elijah, you should run for office. So now I have an encounter with the Lord saying, get ready for something new. 2 people are saying I should run for office. So I thought, maybe I'll give it a go. I open my phone, I Google how to run for office, and it only costs you have to register to vote, which is free. Then you have to register to become a candidate, which the cheapest version is like $25. It's like, okay, I can afford that. And I'm a Republican. My ethnicity doesn't always represent everybody in my district. So I'm probably going to lose, but I feel like I'm supposed to. So I'm going to run and lose for Jesus.
Oh, nice.
But surprisingly, I didn't lose. So here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that experience like running for the first time? I mean, yeah.
Well, first,
Because it is when I first saw you, you went. I don't know. I don't even know if you remember this, but you actually came up this street. You came up by our. You knocked on every door.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was home, but we saw on our ring.
Oh, wow.
I was like, who is this guy?
Do you remember what I said on your Ring camera? Did I say anything?
You said something. It was great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, but yeah, it was great. And you just introduced yourself.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, it was confused. I was like, who is he? Right.
Wow.
And so there's a part of me, the cynical part of me goes like, who's this guy that parachuted in and just trying to run, right? We know nothing, but you have deep roots here. You know, you've been here, you grew up here. And so, yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it's just shocking. We don't, you're right. We don't, the district is more, a lot of Filipino Samoans, Polynesians. And so it's just way, way different. But seeing you run, I was like, dude, and then you won. It was amazing,
Yeah, I'm very grateful. And there is that establishment system of how to get elected. And that's usually you have to be sometimes a certain ethnicity, more from the East, and you have to be a Democrat, and you have to have usually been a lawyer or an office manager or legislative clerk at the House of Representatives, and you're mentored by other people in office, and then you get their endorsement, they endorse you, and then you get tons of endorsement money because you're friends with those who already have endorsements. All this money comes in, may those go out, and you get elected. Wasn't that way for me. I had never stepped foot inside the state capitol. I had never voted before in the state. And I'm a Republican. Yeah. And by God's grace, here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it like for your church? Because you were already serving kind of pastorally, and to go from the transition of pastoral ministry into the political realm, what was that like for them?
I would say some supported me more than others. And for those that supported me more, I'm really grateful for them knocking on doors with me and, just spreading the word with me. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Cause I imagine it was a tough transition out,
Yes.
like for me, I just imagine I'm a pastor, and, just that conversation would have been difficult. It's just a huge shift, at the same time, right? There's a tendency for churches to believe that what we need, and I'm a pastor, so I believe that the church has an important place to play in the proclamation of the gospel. 1 Timothy 3, that the church is the household of God, a pillar and buttress of the truth, that we uphold the truth.
Amen.
But at the same time, right, that's not the only thing that God works through, right? God works through, I think it was not Martin Luther King, shout out, but Martin Luther, who said that one of the ways that we glorify, a shoemaker glorifies God, isn't by writing crosses on the shoes, but by making really good shoes. And so we need good Christian shoemakers, good Christian, entrepreneurs, and good Christian politicians, that God works through all of those things, And so, but I feel like in the church, it's kind of dude, let's just stay in our lane and just preach the gospel, which is great. I think that's what the church should do. But Christians across the spheres, in construction, in business, and how they operate and how they function, have a part to play in making this world a better place. Bringing the kingdom to earth.
I like that. Yeah, and if there's pastors listening or church leaders, may I offer a what I believe a biblical rebuke to them?
Yeah.
So all throughout the New Testament church, we see activism. We see people that are helping the poor. We see people that are helping the needy. And there was a time period in the Greco-Roman era where the emperors would be okay with burning Christians as torches to light the streets. Right. And children were allowed to be birthed and then just discarded by the streets. Right. And how did the Christians respond? They spoke to authority. Paul's letter to the Romans He wrote that to the Romans before he got there, and then he got there and he spoke to, I believe it was the emperor himself or something. He was being active. I mean, the guy who wrote most of the New Testament, he spoke to leadership. So this idea that pastors need to stay out of it or not run for office, I don't believe it. When Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself, if I really love the guy next to me, I want his taxes to be cheaper. And I want his cost of electricity to be cheaper.
Even if he doesn't want his taxes to be cheaper, I want his taxes to be cheaper.
If you survey District 39, most people want their taxes cheaper.
Amen.
So sure, maybe there's a couple outliers, but for the majority, they want their taxes cheaper.
Yeah.
And they want their kids going to school and the bus system to be fluid.
Right.
And they want there not to be bullies at the school. And they want their kids to graduate and to have this sense of, you just graduated from Waipahu. Wow. That means you could go to college. That means you could go become a professor someday. Wow, you graduated from Campbell? That means you could become the president someday. We want that kind of mindset for our neighbors because if I love them, I want what's best for them. So this Christian mindset of I'm only going to share the gospel because that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Paul saw Jesus. He was an ambassador of Christ and he spoke to leaders.
And he wasn't afraid, even in those moments when he's speaking to Felix or he's speaking in the book of Acts. Paul actually, when it's advantageous, actually calls to his Roman citizenship.
Come on. Yeah.
Right. Like I'm a road. He understood the law. He appealed to Caesar so he could get to Rome for the proclamation of the gospel. And they actually say if he had not appealed to Caesar, he would have walked free.
Right.
And so he's kind of utilizing, he understands his law. He understands it better than the people that are persecuting him are. And it's able to put him in position where he stands before the Roman emperor at some point, proclaims the gospel. And of course, Paul would be killed under probably Nero. Probably would, church history says he's beheaded. But that kind of lays the groundwork for this, amazing spread of Christianity. And as Christianity spreads, life expectancies get longer. We stop taking advantage of people. So there is a general equity of like Christianity and blessing other people as it spreads, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we have Emperor Constantine. He establishes Christianity around 400 AD. That's a wonderful advancement for the Roman era because so many things that were evil became illegal. If you think of to yourself, okay, the goal of the church is to preach the gospel. How about in Africa? If you want to engage tribes in Africa, you go to leaders first. That's a political structure. You go to the leader of that village, you evangelize them, you go to the father of those households, and then when they accept it, there's freedom for the villages or the individual homes to receive it. We look at all throughout the Old Testament, King David was a king, yet he had a relationship with the Lord. And prophets spoke to those kings and said, get right with God. So if we have churches today with prophetic mouthpieces, pastors or what have you, and they're supposed to speak to people, let that be a reminder to our churches to say, wake up, talk to your churches. The most important thing, I think, is life and death. When the children of Israel are walking from Egypt, they've been wandering for many years, and they're about to enter the promised land. Leviticus 26 and Deuteronomy 28, God tells them, you guys have two options, life and death. Life looks like obedience. Life also looks like literal living, like I'm alive right now. And so we talk about the issue of abortion. If there's a government, the state of Hawaii, one of the first states to pass the permission of abortion, around 22 or 24 weeks, the baby is viable. It means the baby comes out of the mother's womb and the baby can live by itself, which is a ridiculous concept of definition. So if a baby is 1 year old, do you think the baby can figure out where all the food is and where all the nurturing is and where all the water is? That baby needs help. So I disagree with that argument of viability. But anyway, that law was passed where when the baby's viable, it can be birthed and somehow survive with medical attention. That's the permissible point of abortion. That's immoral. We do not support death. We don't support killing things that are unjustly killed. So if you're a Christian and you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to get involved in politics. My mission is just to love people. My mission is just to preach the gospel. Your mission is to advocate for life. It says throughout, I believe it's Isaiah 58, the prophet, is rebuking the children of Israel, I think, and he's saying, you guys need to be taking care of the widows and orphans. You guys are fasting and trying to have all these ceremonies, but you guys are supposed to be taking care of the needy. The needy includes the unborn. So by voting for pro-life presidents, they get to nominate pro-life justices to the Supreme Court. And then pro-life senators get to confirm those nominations. From the President Trump in the 2016 to 2020 election, he nominated and successfully was confirmed by the Senate 3 pro-life Supreme Court justices. And that got to overturn Roe v. Wade. And that got to bring back to the states, all 50 states, the conversation of when does life begin, and when are we going to start allowing the murderization of children? And for many states, they already had trigger bills, which means like the states of Tennessee and such, I believe, they realized, oh, you know what? We see what's going on.
Right.
There's a Republican president in office. He's nominating pro-life justices. They're going to be confirmed. They're going to eventually overturn Roe v. Wade. Let's have a law already passed that says once it goes back to the states, this is the new plan. And the new plan is we're protecting life.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody who voted in 2024, because I believe there's going to be more righteous laws and righteous verdicts passed in legislation and in the judicial system.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an amazing thing, you know, and I like those trigger laws, like the wisdom that was in place from people to put those in place to protect life, I think is crucial. And I think that as the church, we can't be afraid to say those things. We can't be afraid to say, you know, the murder of the unborn is unjust, you know? And I think like you said about in the Roman Empire, they would discard babies. They would perform, you know, infanticide was okay. And Christians were the ones who would at night listening to baby crying and take the babies and care for them. And so I do believe that not just advocating for, you know, righteous laws, but finding and of course, like it's a ridiculous standard to say that, hey, all Christians, like, you need to be adopting everybody. But can you care for? Can you look for people in your sphere that, you know, of babies that need to be cared for, of children that need to be cared for, of the needy among you in your neighborhood, you know, like, can you start there, you know? And I think that's important, for sure. But yeah, I love that. I love that you said that. And it's really strange to hear a politician speak about that in a very clear way. Like, is that, you know?
I pray that it's not strange. Invite your friends, everybody listening, run for office. If you love Jesus and you want to advance God's kingdom in politics, run for office. It's so simple. You don't have to have a record of voting ever in the state. All you have to do is become a registered voter and become a candidate and seek mentorship, and you can get elected.
Yeah. And so I want to go back just to your role in politics as a representative of District 39. You said you're a whip. Can you explain what that is for people that might not know?
Yeah, the job title or description just basically means that I get to help count votes in our caucus to advocate for a bill that we're trying to pass on the floor or in a committee meeting, and I get to organize people who give testimony to come to committees and say, we should think this bill should die or succeed.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then how many Republicans are there in the House of Representatives right now?
9 in the House, 3 in the Senate.
Okay.
Out of 51 in the House.
It's a lot of you guys.
Well, thank you for saying that. It's a lot compared to our statehood history,
right.
But it's not a lot compared to like Texas.
Yeah. Definitely not. I went to Texas once and I just felt the freedom. It was crazy.
I smell freedom.
I smell freedom out here. This is crazy. Have you? So you ran in what year?
I ran in 2022.
Okay.
Won, and ran in 2024 and won.
Okay. So 2022 post COVID. Did that motivate you at all? Like what happened during COVID?
Yeah, I used to be in the Air Force, and they passed an unconstitutional ban.
By the way, it is wrong to call that the chair force.
Okay.
I got some young Marines and
okay,
stop doing that.
Yeah.
So you were in the Air Force.
Just to summarize, the Air Force, along with other branches, told people you have to get the vaccine, and if you don't, we're going to kick you out.
Okay.
Well,
and you were in at that time when that was going on.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Anyway, thankfully, a Supreme Court case came out that said any military branch that has told you have to get out of the military because you didn't take the vaccine, that's wrong, and we're gonna have to reinstate your rank, and all that stuff.
Wow. Oh, okay. Oh, so did you get back in?
I actually took the vaccine, not because I thought it was a good idea. In a medical sense, I took it because it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Paul saying, I became all things to all people so that I can save some. I was a hospice chaplain, and I had patients that, of course, are dying, and I wanted access to them so that I could preach the gospel to them before they died.
Yeah.
So to me, I believe that, it says in Mark chapter 16, you could pick up a deadly snake and it won't harm you as a sign of a believer. I believe that I can take this poison vaccine. It's not going to harm me, and I'm going to be able to have access to preach the gospel to these patients.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. Somebody asked me why I took it, and I was like, I'm not advocating for forced vaccinations or anything. I was like, I'm just obese, dude. I was like, okay. I was like, just, you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, I don't know. I'm looking at statistics. Let me see. That was me. But I do think like, that's a beautiful thing to be able to take it upon yourself, but you're doing it for the proclamation of the gospel, which is unreal.
Well, it's real. There's so many people that do that.
I just keep saying that because I'm like I said, I grew up here as well, just like you. and we don't hear it very often. And so your boldness kind of is encouraging. Like
Thank
your
you.
boldness in the things you're talking about, the things you're addressing, it is encouraging because I mean I'm sure you know that people don't think. I mean, the news isn't kind to you
Mm-mm.
at all.
But
Like they're not kind to you.
but God is. It says
Yeah.
in Zephaniah chapter 3 verse 17 that that God dances and sings over his people.
Right.
He has that much delight for the Israelites. He has that same delight for his followers and the new covenant who have been grafted in.
Mhm.
Jesus, God, dances and sings over you, Christian. He sings and dances over me. So imagine a union who blasts me with their mailers. Imagine a news article that says bad things about me. Imagine a constituent in the minority because I got elected that says bad things against me. That is not as important as God being delighted over us.
Awesome. One of the things I wanted to ask you, I know we have like a lot of, like what are the big things kind of in District 39 that for you personally that you see, okay, a lot of people like they care a lot about, you know?
The cost of living, so condo insurance prices, the cost of electricity, the cost of food, the cost of to buy a house, really the cost of anything.
The
Everything's
cost of
expensive.
Costco.
There you go.
Yeah.
The cost of gas, and then there's homelessness, there's crime, there's education. We are not the top ranked school district or state in the nation when it comes to our schools. Only about 80% of our students in Campbell and Waipahu High School graduate. I think there
Really?
should be like 95% graduation rate.
Yeah.
Also, our SAT and ACT tests are very low according to the national average. And so I don't think the teachers union should be applauded for saying, great job, you're doing a wonderful job with our students. No, if you're the union advocating for teachers and the teachers should be advocating for students, do a better job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I don't know if this is the case, but I've been to Waipahu just to, I know some of the students there and, but I guess my impression of it, I went to Iolani in town, but I'm from Waipahu. I love it here. Like this is like my dream was to just live in Waipahu my whole life, which I'm so thankful that I can. And I went away to college, came back, and got married. And she's like, "Where you want?" My wife was like, "Where you want to live?" I'm like, "Just Waipahu. I love it here." And so I love the school. I love the students. I love the community out here. We planted our church out here. We love this place. But I was under the impression that like Waipahu has some amazing STEM program. They have some amazing things
yeah.
happening, and they have like 30 something valedictorians. Just like so, there's I know like one of my nieces is in early college, so they have all these amazing programs. So I was under the impression that things are going really really well in that regard. Like in the program, in the offerings, they got new buildings going up there, and so yeah, I thought man, things are going really really well. I didn't know about the lower scores or anything like that on national compared to the national average.
For sure. And I want to celebrate all of the successes
Yeah.
and say thank you to all the faculty and staff of these high schools and Department of Education schools that are helping with these accomplishments. That's great. But we don't want to ignore the failures and the elephants in the room that's saying, well, look, we've adjusted the way we value grades. So, for instance, why not? Sometimes, if there's a 5 questions on the test, you choose A, B, D, or C, or E. If you choose like at least one of them, I don't know if I'm conveying this properly, but basically you could get all the answers wrong and still get like a D or something like that and pass.
Oh, that's strange.
I'm not saying that Waipahu is the
they
same
wait
way.
they weight their grades. Okay,
Yeah, and so a passing grade could be a D or something like that, or you have to have at least 20% to pass, which simply means you put a bubble on the test score.
Yeah, no.
Waipahu, I'm not saying that they're failing in that regard. I'm just saying that we could do better.
Yeah.
We can have a better graduation rate than 80%.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of that, of course, starts in the home. A lot of that starts with like caring for the families, and so as churches, like we have an obligation, we have an opportunity to like care for families and help them in that regard. Even small churches, you can impact a few people, But so I guess the question I would have then is like, how can we, as a state, then we're all one school district, but how can we as a state, how can we as a community, support our teachers, help our teachers to help our students as well, but also help the teachers to do a better job or incentivize doing a better job. I was thinking about, just like with our police force, for example, people want, we love the police when we need them, but then there was for a while there, it seemed like there was this negative view towards police officers. And then, but we're thinking, okay, like maybe, but how can we help them do it? Like if we see some things that you think, okay, these aren't going well in the police force, how can we incentivize good behavior? How can we incentivize, better recruitment? How can we help them do their job better? And so I guess with the students, with the teachers, I would ask, and faculty, what are some things that we can advocate for, or laws that we can advocate for, ways that we can help teachers do a better job, ways that we can incentivize good teachers and decentivize other thing, other types of teachers.
We can abolish the teachers union so that there's no more of this retention system of like, okay, you're a bad teacher, but we're going to retain you anyway because we have a union that's backing your retention. We can also take on the values of Scripture. The Bible says in Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. You don't have understanding as a teacher if you don't know God. You don't have wisdom if you don't fear God. So if you have a secular, non-Jesus following teacher in the Department of Education, they're not wise and they don't have knowledge, according to Proverbs. And if we believe in Scripture, we're going to want to promote biblical education. We're going to want to promote godly teachers influencing our kids. And so godly teachers believe in the book of Hebrews that say things like, the Lord disciplines those he loves. It talks about it in the Old Testament, why you're supposed to discipline your kids.
Yeah. If you don't discipline your kids, you don't love them. Actually.
Exactly. Yeah. So we have non-loving leaders in our Department of Education because they're not disciplining our kids. I'm not saying you're supposed to spank them and cause them to have red rashes or bruises. I'm saying you're supposed to have discipline for them. And we have apathetic leaders that don't say, stop that. You need to behave. This is how the better way to behave. And the delivery doesn't have to look like that, but the delivery does need to encompass course correction.
Yeah.
Behavior modification isn't the ultimate goal. We need to have heart transformation.
Yes. Yeah.
And that comes from having a submissive, loyal, devoted relationship to Jesus.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah.
So let's have revival. Let's get everybody saved. And let's get everybody to follow Jesus.
So the church, so that's the way. Is like the church continue to preach the gospel. And I guess one of the ways the church can do a good job, I'm just thinking about the church because I'm a pastor, but one of the ways that we can do a good job is we support our teachers. Like as the church, we support them. We encourage them to do what you're saying, to like be a light, that there are teachers that are out there, like it's so interesting because like some of the people that impacted me the most are teachers, that have been just really thoughtful and really caring. And like I was a kid from Waipahu and I ended up at Iolani, and one of the ways I got there was just I had like great teachers. I got teachers that were like, I could call them friends now, and they looked out for a little middle schooler, And so I do think maybe that's the route we take is like, man, start like, if we know that's actually what Scripture says about what leads to transformation. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of beginning of wisdom. Fools despise knowledge, right? Or beginning of knowledge, fools despise wisdom. Then we have to support our teachers as best we can, as best we can.
And support doesn't mean blanket endorsements for everything that they believe and do to our students. Yeah. We take, for instance, Eva Mackay Middle School. I was invited by the principal and coordinated with the district superintendent.
I just went there yesterday. Beautiful school.
Isn't it amazing?
First time.
Amazing
I went to a
facilities.
concert and it was amazing. And man, like they were really talented middle school bands.
That's great.
Yeah.
And if they have symbols of sexual idolatry or symbols of sexual perversions on the wall, which one of the colors of the rainbow on the rainbow flag stands for transgenderism, which to be clear is, surgery to remove certain body parts.
What's the rainbow flag? Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
The LGBTQ stands for lesbian, bi, bisexual, gay, lesbian, transgender, etc.
Yeah.
So we need to support our teachers, but we also need to speak truth to them and speak truth to the principals and let them know what the community desires.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see that there, but I guess
that's good. What part of the campus did you go to?
I was just in the
outside
the cafeteria or something.
Okay.
But I was also focused on the jazz band, so I didn't see that. Yeah.
Okay.
But but I agree. Like we shouldn't be pushing that at all in public schools.
I agree.
Speaking of public school, so my kids don't go to they don't go to public school. But I had a question. So my kids are homeschooled, right? They're homeschooled. Actually, you know what? They do go to a public school. They're at a charter school.
Oh, okay.
But they only go like once or twice a month or something like that. But most of the schooling is handled at home. Like we homeschool our kids. But say what I did notice is if a kid is in high school, they actually don't have access to extracurriculars at the public school. Like they can't play sports at all
Mm.
in Hawaii. And do you have any like I was wondering is that I know that there are some states that offer, you
Mhm.
know, that if you're because the way I
Florida
look
does.
at it is I still pay taxes.
Yes, you do.
So I
A
still pay
lot,
taxes that go to support
right?
the public school. And so on top of paying my taxes that pay for the public school, when I opt out and decide to homeschool my kids, I don't get that money back at all. Okay, that's fine. But then can I have access to the things that are
Right?
there that I pay for,
Mhm.
like the facility, like the sports teams, you know? Because right now, I mean, what if I decided to homeschool my kids in high school because I can't afford a private school or I don't necessarily want to send them to school where they're 8 hours a day, you know?
Mhm.
Um, not necessarily. I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm not saying I would. But what I'm saying is currently right now,
Mhm.
but I don't have access to the sports teams.
Mhm.
Like so.
Yeah. So the way we can adjust that is introducing bills that call for law changes, which I have done. I've introduced a bill, and other of my colleagues have signed on to that bill
Mhm.
that say let's allow homeschoolers and private schoolers to participate in the public school sports.
Mhm.
That bill didn't pass because the Democrats are in charge, and the Democrats don't want that.
Mhm.
I've also introduced a bill called school choice, which means you as the homeschool dad can go and collect your $18,000 of tax funds and bring it back to your child and let that follow the child's education, be it homeschool, charter school, or public school, private
Mhm.
school. The Democrats are in charge and they don't want that bill to pass. So they didn't let that bill pass.
Yeah. So I always wondered that. So not even like I'm not. I wasn't involved in a lot of politics, but just practically speaking, like who would be against? Why be against school choice? Like, what's the problem? What's like? I would imagine that more parents would want more
Mhm.
freedom, but it seems like as far as the Democrats are concerned, like there's a strong advocacy against more freedom in school
Yeah.
choice. Like, why is that? It doesn't affect that. Like, what's the problem?
It's about leadership and the mindset of in which you're leading. So if you're an empowering leader, if you're a servant leader, if you're a leader that believes that your followers will follow you because of the way you lead, you empower them. You give them freedom. You give them options. And because they like you as a leader, they're going to follow you.
Mhm.
Leaders that don't believe in themselves, that aren't visionary, charismatic, and have great ideas that can have long lasting generational change, they're controlling. And that's what the Democrats do. They don't believe that if we allow you, Christian, to have your $18,000 to use those funds where you want, that you're going to go back to the public schools. Because why? Because homeschoolers are outperforming public schools, because private schools are outperforming. So they're very knowledgeable about this. If they're smart, they're going to realize, wait a minute, if we empower all of the parents across Hawaii to choose where their kids go, they're not going to choose our public schools, so we're going to lose funding.
Mm.
Empowering selfless leaders don't care about that.
Mhm.
They put you first. They put your kids first, and they say, you know what? I understand that you're being taxed, and I understand that you probably have a better idea of how to parent your kids,
Mhm.
than us. So we're going to let you, the parent, be empowered, enabled to make that decision. And if it's us, praise God. That's
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yeah.
You're choosing that option. They don't think like that. They think from the mindset of you're taking away the education funds, you're taking away the teacher's salary. Hello, it's about the kids. Let the parents who know the kids best
Mhm.
govern where those $18,000 go.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, I think like like I guess I look at that and go like that seems like obvious. Though.
It is so
Yeah, it seems
obvious.
like obvious. Like we can do that, and you can decide, and we can decide. And again, I all things being equal, like I would love for my kids like to to like I have nothing against Waipahu or anything like that,
Yeah.
but it's just right now where we're at, and the education of our kids, like they're doing fine, and they get enough. They play sports and they're interactive in the community. They're serving. Like we're doing a lot of things. But yeah, I just think it's obvious. Like let's all have more options, and
Yes.
like with anything, I guess you're introducing some competition, I guess, into
Oh, for sure.
into things like because people are going to take their money elsewhere where they want
Yeah.
to go. Yeah, but
And the mindset of equality sometimes is distorted. Instead of saying, well, let's tax everybody in the state, have one school district, and one superintendent, one school board, and we distribute funds as the leadership thinks best. How about we make it competitive? So if, let's say, Kapolei is doing better than Waipahu, well, then more parents are going to say, you know what? I like Kapolei because their kids are getting more of their students are graduating with higher GPAs, and more of those students are statistically going to college. I'm going to go to the more competitive school. That makes more sense to me. A market-based education system versus, it's based on geography or it's based off of anything else.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. yeah, and I guess it comes down to as well. Like, I'm being taxed for it, so I would love to. I would love, I would love it if I could make a decision, like, or if I could benefit a little bit from it.
Right.
So one of the things I wanted to just ask you as we're thinking about, just policies and all of that, is for you being in office. You said you this is your second term. So what are some things, I guess, even from your Democratic colleagues as well? Like, what are some things that you've learned? Maybe they've been positive, from them, and just, or a positive thing you've learned about just trying to work together. Because I imagine that from the outside, it's like, it could be any organization. From the outside, it looks like, things are pretty simple. Like, why don't you just do this?
Exactly.
But from the inside, when you get into any organization, you're like, dude, things just, it's difficult to just happen like that, Whereas, like, if I could wave a magic wand and make things happen how I wanted, I would. But I have to work with people. We have to come to a compromise. Certain things we don't compromise, right? That means being principled. And here's the thing. Being principled is important because it's going to mean, like, if we want everybody to be principled, then there are going to be some things that we just never compromise on, and that's okay. But what are some things that you've learned just, I guess, working with the other side in order to make things happen?
That just because you're Democrat, you're not automatically evil. Now, the Democratic Party is evil. They believe that they support transgenderism for children. That means a boy's penis is chopped off and replaced surgically with a vagina. That is evil. That is wicked.
Is that written in their...
Totally. I can bring it up on my phone, on your phone. It's on the state platform, not the national platform alone, the state platform. And so if you're saying, I'm a Democrat, you're saying, I believe in that. Now, there are some out there...
That's their platform.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's also the platform to promote that in the Department of Education. It's not just saying we allow it. We want to promote it and, like, advance it in the education system. They say we support and advance abortion, killing innocent children in the wombs of the mothers. That is wicked. That is evil. That is ungodly. Now, thankfully, there are some Democrats that have critical thinking minds, and they vote against some of that stuff. So I'm very grateful for the 2 Democrats in 2023 that voted against Senate Bill 1, which allows 14-year-old girls to abort their baby without mom or dad knowing.
Whoa.
2 Democrats in the House said,
you can't even get a tattoo.
Exactly. You can't. Some places. You can't marry at that age.
Yeah.
You can't have consensual sex with an adult at that age, but you can abort your baby at that age without mom or dad knowing. That's ridiculous. That's wicked. It's permitting a divide between the child and the parent. That's permitting murder. And of course, there's so many conversations and empathy and compassionate, emotions we can emote towards the people that are undergoing these things. A 14-year-old girl says, I'm pregnant. My dad's going to shame me. My mom's going to be disappointed at me. I'm not ready to be an adult. There's those conversations. But the answer isn't just passing a bill that says you're allowed to murder your baby.
Yeah.
It's bigger than that. How about we adopt out? Or if it's rape or incest, there could be cases for exemptions.
Yeah. No, that's heavy.
It's super heavy. It's working at the Capitol is a weight. It is a mantle. And I'm grateful that I don't have to do this alone. Matthew 11, God can take our yoke and make our burden light.
Yeah. That's awesome. Wow. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about... I don't think that people know necessarily. I'm just looking at how people vote in Hawaii. There's probably a lot of people that don't even know that that's an official party line. Like, that's their platform.
It's sad. It's very sad. Well, I mean, you may have gotten a mailer this past October, November from Planned Parenthood advocating for my opponent. But you're right. It didn't actually say this is a Democrat platform. It was Planned Parenthood that sent out that mailer.
Yeah. Which you'd expect from Planned Parenthood. Yeah, very dark, very wicked. Yeah. And the transgender thing, I mean, they just had track the other year. And to me, it's like, what's the point of Title IX if boys can go compete with girls? Like, what's the point?
And the state has been in support of men in women's bathrooms and men in women's sports for several years in our state.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It's just obviously, I mean, the governor and the Speaker of the House, they're clever. They're not going to say, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? 14-year-old Ikaika is now going to spend time with Iolani in her bathroom. They're not going to say that. That is stupid. And they instead say things like, we are gender compassionate and we love you. And no matter how you identify with, we want you to experience the freedom of you being yourself, because you being yourself and what you feel, that's what's true. And that's what really matters. Sometimes murderers say, I feel like I hate that person and I want to kill them. Okay, that's not what's true.
Right. Your feelings are not a good gauge of what's morally correct.
Exactly. Yeah. God and his objectivity and how he discloses himself in his word is what truth is.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Just for you at a personal level, I had a friend that was in politics. Just a good friend. Love him. He's a Christian as well. And it was interesting as I was talking with him. I said, like, what do you plan to do, with this? And he said, I can see myself pursuing, like doing my job. I love my job and doing this as a service. Like I love public service. And I asked him, like, how can I be praying for him? Because I mean, I'm a pastor. I'm sure there's people that don't want to go be a pastor. And I understand why, but I also understand. But I would never want to go be a politician, like ever. But as I was talking with him, he just said, pray for me that I don't want to. I want to stay humble. I want to stay at a place where this is about public service. And I can see. He said, I look at some colleagues and I can see they've been in for a long time. And I can see how they probably didn't start off like loving that power necessarily. They probably started off like me, wanting to serve. And so he just said, just pray that my heart would stay humble. And yeah, I was wondering, is that a temptation at all for you to wrestle through something you pray for? Yeah.
For sure. I would say anybody who has more attention than they're used to, more momentum behind their words than they're used to, fill in the blank of what comes with the job. And yeah, there's always that opportunity, that pull to say, wow, all these people actually see me as Elijah as important versus they're just seeing the job. And I'm just fulfilling that job in that season.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it is important though. Like, I think it is important what you're doing, and I appreciate it just as a Christian. Where you are you attending? Are you still at you said you were at New Hope Town before. Are you still attending church? Kind of like, where do you attend church at? Where's
Mostly
your church?
One Love.
Oh, One Love.
Yeah.
Oh, with Pastor Waxer.
Yes.
He's the man, isn't he?
He's great. Now it's actually, they've switched senior pastorship to...
Did they? To Myola?
Myola, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know Myola.
Yeah.
Good, dude, what?
Yeah.
So you go all the way out there?
Yes.
Okay, so I was at church right over there, Harbor Church in Honolulu for a long time.
Very close.
So very close, like right by Whole Foods. We're kind of neighbors. We actually did what was this, post-COVID? I don't know if you were there yet, but we did a post-COVID Easter sunrise service actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, together. Or was it pre-COVID? It might have been pre-COVID. I don't even remember.
I went to One Love after COVID.
Okay, after COVID.
Yeah.
Okay.
After New Hope Town closed down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome though. Yeah, One Love. Okay, so we were neighbors for a little bit there. Man. And how do you like what is one thing, I guess, that you've been most encouraged by being a Republican, advocating for the things you're advocating for in Hawaii? How do you I was gonna ask, how do you not get sad? No, but
well, there are some sad days.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd say the most encouraging piece is the community and their feedback. You knock on their door and they're very generous with their words. They're very kind with their time. And just like you talked about the danger of being prideful, it's that combination of like letting people's feedback, like it's incredible. I'm very, very grateful for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you this time around, I think you got into a really close race, right?
Yeah.
It was like 4 recounts or something like that. What was that like for you that night?
I'll share before I answer that question, let me answer a bigger question. And that's running for re-election in general. And so about a year ago, I had the thought of, I don't know if I want to run for re-election. There's some mean people in office and there's some mean people in government. And I could just go back to having a smaller influence job and be very happy and actually make more money.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll do that. And I prayed about it. Lord, is that okay with you? Can I be released from this responsibility? And I felt like he put it on my heart saying, no, Elijah, I want you to run for re-election and you're going to win. I was like, okay, all right, let's do this. And so a year out before the election, doing different campaigning stuff. And then about a month before the election, I felt like the Lord was putting on my heart saying, kind of like slow down campaigning, like stop with as many mailers as you're doing, stop with the text messages as much, and don't spend money on this. An idea would come up, I should spend money on that. He's like, don't spend money on this. Save the money for 2026. So I have over $18,000 of unspent campaign funds from, tons of people donating money. And it's just waiting for 2026. And I was like a month out before the election, just kind of cruising. And people would be calling me, Elijah, your opponent just knocked on my door. You should be knocking on my door. Where are you? And people would send me money. This is $1,000. I want you to spend this on a mailer that is against your opponent, because he's sending out like 5 mailers to every one of your 1 mailers. I just kept feeling like I should say on the phone, thank you so much for your concern. I really appreciate that. But in my heart, I felt like the Lord was putting there saying, don't campaign. Like, just trust me. You're going to win, not by a lot, but you're still going to win. Trust me. And it's kind of like Gideon preparing battle against the Midianites. It's like, I have all these men, they're all talented, but instead of doing that, we're going to have exercises after exercises of dwindling down your resources to watch God get the glory for the victory. So my opponent outspent me. He went to more doors than me. He had the governor, lieutenant governor, surrounding senators, except for Mike Gabbard, all endorsing him. And by God's grace, I won.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's amazing. Yeah.
You don't need to be backed by the unions. You don't need to have a certain ethnicity or a certain voting history or a certain level of advocacy or legislative input to run for office.
Yeah.
Just obey God and run and see what happens.
Yeah. So speaking of the unions, how do you? Because I can see. I'm not a union worker, but I can see what people care about though is they care about their jobs. They care about having work. They care about somebody fighting for Hawaii businesses and Hawaii workers and Hawaii laborers.
That's all
and so
good.
yeah, and so how do you and how do the Republicans like fight for the worker, fight for the everyday person, the people that are driving H1 4 a.m. to get to work and driving in traffic back. Some of them can't even pick up their own kids from school, but they're fighting, they're working hard. How do you guys like say, cause there's a view out there that other people, they advocate for workers, but Republicans, they don't. They advocate for the white collar guy, but they don't advocate for the blue collar guy, the guy that's working hard. So what would you say about that?
So Democrats in general raise your taxes and they give you more regulations that make it harder for your business to have prosperity and to pass on that prosperity to the employees. Republicans in general, they love lower taxes and less government red tape so that it liberates the business owners to be very prosperous and to pass on that prosperity to their workers. Example, the rail. Democrat leaning city council, Democrat leaning legislator, Democrat leading governor and mayor that say, yes, we should have billions and billions of dollars to connect a train to only several neighborhoods where only portions of the island can actually access it. Never mind the fact that there's not enough parking lots for the cars to go to, park, and then ride the rail if it was truly going to, facilitate the masses of our state.
Right.
Let's support a rail system where everybody's property taxes gets pulled out of, like this house, big house. Your property taxes are maybe over $1,000 a year. All that money is going to go towards the rail. And then that rail money, it's going to go towards the cement and the rebar and the train and the electricity to run the rail. That's great. But also, we're going to pay a bunch of workers, and maybe those workers aren't always efficient to get the job done on time. A bunch of contracting companies, not all of the contracting companies are efficient. Simple things like the train wheels fitting on the train tracks and them not fitting. That's not quality work. Why are we paying for that? For every rider who jumps on the rail, the overhead cost is about $58, $55 to ride it. It only costs us, the constituents, $3. So we're giving the city and county this huge increasing debt of just letting it run.
Yeah, $55.
We'd save money if we didn't even have it run right now.
Really?
Yes, we're not like, oh, we're actually becoming closer to cash positive. No, if we just turn off all the lights and turn off all the electricity, we're going to save money because it costs more money to run it right now. So the Democrats are like, oh, we're creating more jobs. You talked about the unions.
Yeah.
When I interviewed for a union to run for office in 2022, they basically said, I'm paraphrasing, if you don't support the unions, we're not going to endorse you because this union is pro-worker. This union is pro-family. And the rail is an avenue for those workers and families to have money. Okay, well, think about it. Yeah, but those workers have houses. And this house, all of our property taxes could be going to increase the wages of firemen or of police officers. If we have more money for police officers, we can have safer neighborhoods. If we have more money in the Department of Facility Maintenance, we can have nicer roads for the city and county roads. But instead, they say, no, let's instead create this dream project that's inefficient. It's not timely. It's not cost effective. It's over budget by billions of dollars. And that's going to be our communication piece to say we're pro-family. Because look, we're pro-union workers, and the union workers now have a job. It's way better if we just, let's say, it sounds, fairy tale-ish. Let's have a double-decker highway. There's so many things we can do that actually support our freedom, because why would you want to drive to Kapolei near Kamakana Ali'i and just say, I'm going to park my car there and I'm going to drive all the way to Halava or next to Pearl Harbor? I mean, for you in Roakuni, that doesn't make sense. Even if you drive down to buy Don Quixote's, there's not a parking lot there big enough for everybody.
Right.
And then you're limited to your $3 to go from there to there. You can't stop over to Waikiki and have dinner if you want.
Right.
So you ask yourself, well, Republican versus Democrat, union, pro-union or not, I believe in freedom. And the Democrats don't seem to be advocating freedom in their policies and in their projects.
Yeah. Like put freedom and it comes with responsibility. You could wreck yourself, but you get more money in your pocket to do what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't tell me I have to ride the rail. Don't tell me to ride an e-bike. Let me choose to buy a car to drive on the road where I want to where I want to drive.
Yeah. That makes sense. And so you got all these things happening, just all these policies. It just seems like so many things. How do you keep it all straight in your head?
Well, they don't pay me enough to care enough to meaning. So let me put it this way. I don't have to carry these issues. I simply get to steward the project or steward the job for a season, and then I'm done. Whether that's you wake up in the morning, I'm on my own time till 8 a.m., and then I'm on the worker's clock, so to speak. I'm on salary, but using hypothetical timelines, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or whatever it is, and then once I'm off the clock, dear Lord, I thank you so much for this day, and I'm not going to worry about any of this. Instead, I'm going to have fun with my family, my friends. I'm going to go surfing.
Yeah. And so Hawaii, we have a part-time legislature, right?
Totally.
And so, do you think that it would be? I'm just asking opinion here. That it would be better do you like the part-time legislature, or do you think that, man, if I could dedicate full time to this, it would be better? What are your thoughts on that?
If we have bad leaders in office and we give them more time to make bad decisions, we're gonna have a worse off state. So,
That's a good way to
so I am all about condensing the opportunity for them to hurt us.
Okay.
If you give them twice the amount of time to raise our taxes, they're probably gonna take the advantage of it. So I'd say let's make it shorter. As long as we have bad leaders in office, let's not even convene.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's some benefits to convening.
Yeah. Okay. And then, like, if somebody wanted to get involved, like, how do they get involved? Like, just starting out. Like, I want to just get involved. I want to help because I think, like, I am. You know how in America there's a strong sense of the national conversation. Like, everybody wants to be a part of the national conversation, but you can actually have more effect, more influence if you just start taking your local, the locality seriously. If you start taking like local government seriously, and so how does someone like get involved locally? Like, what's the steps? Where should they go?
If they want to run for office, choose if it's going to be city, county, state senate, or House Senate. House rep. So once you choose that, then partner with mentors. If you're a conservative, partner up with Leadership Institute. If you're a Democrat, New Politics might be an option for you. Reach out to the Hawaii Republican Party or the Democratic Party if that's your mentorship lane. You can also partner up with other groups that you may have never heard of before and ask for their mentorship. Mentorship is so big. I basically did almost everything I was asked to do when I was a new candidate, and it worked. I won.
Oh, yeah. So you had a mentor that helped you out?
Multiple, yeah.
Okay.
So that conversation started off by me driving to my friend's house in it wasn't Westlock. It was Ocean something.
Was this the one that didn't run?
No, I was going to a different friend.
Oh, okay.
Good question. And I'm parking my car, getting ready to step out to go to my friend Bernardo's house, and I get a phone call, and I don't recognize the number. I said, hello, and it's the vice chair of the Republican Party, and he wants to mentor me on how to run for office. He's like, what's your game plan? What's your story? Why did you run for office in the first place? And I'm like, yeah, I just signed up the other day, but please ignore me. I'm going to lose. Focus your time on a different wishful Republican who thinks he's going to win. He's actually not. But you guys can do your fairy tale exercise with him because none of us Republicans are going to win. But he's like, no, the Bible says if God gives you a talent, you're supposed to steward it. And if you steward it well, God will give you more. I was like, oh. And he was telling me on the phone, Elijah, it sounds like you're a pastor and you love Jesus. God has given you this talent or this stewardship of running for office. Do it well and see what God does.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Let's give it a go.
Yeah.
So he invited me to a workshop and connected me with other incumbents and previously elected people, and it worked out.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. I have just another question. I know you got to take off soon.
Yeah.
But I have one more question. Just how do you? So as a pastor, I very much care about I care about the well-being of just our people.
Amen.
I care about the gospel going forward. I care about the church. Like in Hebrews it says that Abraham, if he had been looking for the country he had left, he would have had opportunity to return. But he desired a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, because he desired a heavenly country and a better one, therefore God is not ashamed to be called his God.
Nice.
And so I guess what I'm wondering is how do you specifically in your situation, you're doing all this great work. You're a public servant. You're doing all this, but you're a Christian. And so, what's the balance? So, if somebody wanted to get into politics, what's the balance of a Christian being one advocating for truth, advocating for, what God says in his word, and it's good, even if people don't like it. Like my kids, if they wanted, they would eat ice cream for breakfast, right? But we say no, and they melt down like I'm so bad,
Come on.
but I love you, and so I'm gonna disappoint you.
Come on.
In the same way, in politics, as a Christian especially, you're gonna advocate for things that people don't like because they don't like God's word,
Yeah.
and so they won't like it, but you know that it's good. At the same time, how do you balance that from becoming an idol, from replacing the gospel, from
Right.
replacing, like to not let politics or American politics become an idol for you personally? Like, how does that work? And that's something that, like, even I even tell our people that are business owners, like, advocate, work hard for the Lord, make as much money as you can, bless other people, and at the same time, don't let that job become an idol.
For sure.
So for you, like, how do you balance that part?
I don't think I've ever struggled with this job being an idol
Yeah.
because, I mean, I definitely can tell some of my colleagues enjoy it way more than I do. I'll be with my girlfriend and she'll be watching the news and I'll say, can we change the channel? Because it's not interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm a political nerd and I just wig out on, I mean, I'm all about doing a good job for what I'm called to do.
Yeah.
So when I was running for office, I consumed memoirs and I just read them and listened to their audiobooks and wanted to get in the minds of prominent Republicans and Democrats so that I could speak well or do a good job.
Yeah.
But it never became an idol because I always believed in the campaign of 2022, if that's not God's will for me to get this job, I'm not going to get elected. It says in Daniel 2:22, I believe, or 2:21, that God raises kings up and he takes them down, and he's sovereign.
Yeah.
It says in
Amen.
Ecclesiastes 3, it talks about there's a season for this and a season for that. If it's not my season, it's okay. God's bigger than my timeline, and he's bigger than this, whatever this exercise is of obedience to try to run for office as a Republican in Waipahu.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's not an idol. Jesus is my Lord. It says in Galatians chapter 3, verse 20, I have been crucified. It is no longer I who live. It is Christ who lives in me. And the life I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God who bought and paid for me. So I'm just his instrument. I'm his mouthpiece for a season. And if God and his sovereignty moves upon the hearts of the voters to align with his sovereignty to elect me for another term or potentially another term, or maybe not a third term, whatever that looks like, I'm okay with that. I want to be obedient. And if that looks like being, it says, in Galatians 3:20 again, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live. Whatever he wants, that's what I want.
Yeah.
There's more enjoyment in whatever his mission is for your life versus your own mission. So whether you're rich or poor, famous or not famous, go after God, and that's where the pleasure is.
Yeah.
If I could I add to that, it says in the Old Testament, I think in the Psalms, in the presence of God is fullness of joy.
Psalm 16. Yeah.
Psalm 16, verse 22,
It's at the end.
11, maybe 16.
I know where it is in my memory.
Nice. Maybe it's 16:11.
Yeah.
But it says, in the presence of God is fullness of joy, and at his right hand are pleasures forevermore. It says in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 6, that we are already seated together in the heavenly places with Jesus. So it's like there's so much pleasure in God's presence, and there's more nearness to him when we're obedient. John chapter 14, verse 26 talks about, if you love him, you're going to obey him. So that's, I don't think I've ever even thought about making it an idol because that's not how I see this job.
Yeah.
I took a pay cut for this job. It wasn't my first choice.
Yeah.
my desire is to obey Jesus. And if I get to do that while doing this job, that's cool.
I think that's probably why you have so much boldness, though, is because of that.
Because
like, God's sovereign. I'm just gonna. I think when we're trying to, hold our position, keep this authority,
fight for it. Yeah.
Like we aren't bold because we're worried. Like, man, if you don't like me, I won't.
Yeah.
They won't vote for me or something, like, whatever. At the same time, it gives you, you can have the boldness of a lion when no, God is the one who's fighting for me, and when God is done, then his work will continue. Well, while I'm here, I'm gonna be obedient and faithful. I love that.
Thank you. I have many colleagues and other people saying, Elijah, don't vote that way because it's not popular. Don't vote that way because you could potentially not get reelected because that voting record will be put on a mailer and you'll be maligned for it. I was maligned for it. You probably got
you were.
Yes.
Yeah, you were.
And you know what? Who cares?
Yeah.
Do you think Daniel thought about, you know what? I shouldn't pray because the king's men will see me praying and I'll get thrown in the lions. And he's like, no, I'm going to pray. Yeah. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're like, you know what? We probably should actually bow down because if we don't, we'll get thrown in fire. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
We ought to obey God rather than man.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? That's that mailer that I like, it made me more excited to vote for you.
Thank you.
I was like,
Thank
bro,
you.
I was like, dude, that's my guy. Look at him. I was like, he's willing to take shots. But you're again, you're willing to take shots, and it's not just for you because you're a masochist that likes to get bad things said about you, but because one, it's for the Lord, and two, it's for your constituents.
Amen.
I see that as, man, you care about us. That's why you're doing that.
Love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
I want you to have a better, prosperous, safe, economically free life, and so it's what it's for.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I know we gotta go, but I heard that you talked about possibly not allowing, like foreign people to buy homes in Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm for that.
How does that? Is that legal?
No. Well, I mean, to some extent, it's legal.
Because I know it's going to protect like the rising cost of housing, but because outside investors bring a lot of money, and so they're able to raise the prices. But how do we do that in a way that like isn't discriminatory? I guess I'm trying to figure out.
Well, the conversation of is it legal shouldn't be a concern for a legislator. We get to create the laws, so we can create something legal or unlegal. At the federal level, the U.S. Constitution, I think it was, So the first article of the Constitution talks about Congress and Congress's ability to restrict or not restrict commerce between states. In other words, somebody from Utah is legally allowed to buy a house in Hawaii, based on the Article 1 in the U.S. Constitution.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but we can simply introduce a constitutional resolution. And I talked to Macy Hirono, and she was very rude to me and said, no, it's not going to pass. And she's not going to introduce it to say, let's adjust that to allow for Hawaii to say only Hawaii residents can live in Hawaii versus, somebody from New Mexico buying a second house here.
Okay. I guess I got to dig into that more and figure out, like, I'm trying to understand how it works. Like,
we have the U.S. Constitution says states can trade with each other,
yes,
and we can't stop trading, which includes houses being something of trade.
Right. Okay. But you're saying that we would restrict that.
I'm all for that, because let's let Hawaii residents live in Hawaii. Let's not be a vacation destination only.
Yeah. Okay, so you'd have to amend the Constitution,
which is almost impossible.
Yeah. Okay. I was just checking. I was like, what? Okay. That's what I want to know. Is that a possibility, or?
I mean, the last constitutional amendment that was passed, I think Constitutional Amendment 26, was passed in 1993, and that was really a dormant amendment that wasn't fully processed through the ratification process. Yeah.
Okay. I was just checking. I was like, I heard that. I don't know who I heard talking about it. The guy from Kahuku, what's his name?
Brentanawa?
Yeah, I heard him talking about it. I was like, is that possible? Like, I don't know if that's possible. Like, yeah. But I mean, good thought. Good thought. Yeah. I mean, like anybody that's advocating for lower housing in Hawaii would be great. At the same time, I'm like, I kind of like my house increasing in value as well. So I'm just trying to balance it. But yeah. But I appreciate you coming on and taking time. I know you got a super busy schedule, and yeah, I'm really grateful. I hope we can do this again.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I'm really grateful. Any last thoughts, last words before we close out?
Well, thank you, Christian, so much for your time. This is the first and only podcast I've ever done in the District of 39, Rolkonia. So it's a pleasure doing it with you. Thank you for being a pastor. Thank you for loving your community. Thank you for being God's mouthpiece to your shepherd, to your flock as a shepherd. It says in Acts 20 that you're supposed to protect the sheep from ravenous wolves. So just hold on to that and keep protecting. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm grateful. And just like I tell our church, we're called to pray for our leaders and pray for those in authority. And that means praying for those that you disagree with as well.
Yeah.
But I'm also, is a great joy to pray for somebody in our district that we agree with. Yeah, like that's so, like I said, so strange that that's really happening. But my prayer is that, as you lead by example, it would be less and less strange as we move forward.
Amen.
And so, yeah, thank you. I appreciate this.
Mahalo. Thank you, Christian.